Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. Yesterday, a number of you asked me if I would be discussing the allegations against Bryan Singer and their potential effect on his upcoming film, X-Men Days of Future Past. This is a very delicate discussion indeed, but because the situation is snowballing so quickly and so seriously, I think it does warrant a discussion here. But from a business context, when allegations are so serious, I think it's very important to not choose either side and to be very open-minded, because this is, as I said, a very serious situation with very horrible allegations being made. And if they are true, nobody is really a winner here. It's a bad situation across the board, for Hollywood included. All right, so I don't want to go into the details of this case. They're quite sordid. If you would like to know the details of what Bryan Singer is being charged with, I've put a link below in the video description. But the short of it is that a young man has come forward saying that years ago, and that's why this case is just coming to light, he filed it in Hawaii because apparently they had a small window of opportunity where old sex abuse cases could be filed, and so this gentleman and his lawyer took advantage of that. And so this young man says that when he was an actor in Hollywood, he would attend some parties where he was sexually abused by Bryan Singer, and this was somewhat of a group effort. He and some other plaintiffs have already sued the two gentlemen who held the parties. They were the hosts. They won that case for $4 million, so that's very troubling right there in terms of what might happen with Bryan Singer and his future career. And then now he's coming and saying that he's charging Bryan Singer with promising him roles in the X-Men films, etc., and then, to some extent, raping and sexually abusing him. Now, the other problem here is that when this all occurred, this young man was underage, so that adds a whole new level of seriousness to the allegations. So we are going to see what happens and how this plays out. It's obviously very early, but the reason I'm saying it's snowballing is because this young man has held a press conference already. His representation has said this is the first of many cases that he will be bringing forward against Hollywood types, quote unquote, with charges of sexual abuse. So that is another shoe that Hollywood, I'm sure, is waiting to see what drops, because make no mistake, I'm not saying if this is a true case of it, but there is abuse in Hollywood. We've all heard the stories. Roman Polanski, for instance, the Judy Garland's fiasco with prescription drugs during the studio system days. I mean, I think we've all known that abuse takes place, and it looks like someone's going to finally try and take a run at trying to expose it. Now, again, we don't know if these allegations are true with Bryan Singer in particular, but I think that because they're so serious and the nature of the allegations and the fact that this person was underage when they occurred, Singer is already having ramifications. He has representation, which is fighting back very hard out of the gate, as his representation needs to do. But ABC has already pulled his name from promotions for the upcoming television series that he's making with them called Black Box. So those ads were pulled and his name removed. And also, Bryan Singer will not be attending WonderCon this weekend after all to promote X-Men Days of Future Past. Instead, his producing partner Simon Kinberg will be going in his place, because I think that some could argue that Fox, I'm sure it was a joint decision. Fox didn't want him to go, and I think Bryan Singer doesn't want to answer the kind of questions that would be asked of him, and also he doesn't want to pull focus from the film. Will this hurt the film? I have mixed feelings on that. Personally, for me, it doesn't affect my going to see X-Men Days of Future Past, because I don't think anybody else with Fox would know about this. We'll see. As they said, there are more cases to be made, more allegations coming. But as of right now, it seems that this was something confined to Bryan Singer's personal life, if it did occur. So I personally would not have a problem going to see X-Men Days of Future Past, also because Bryan Singer has not been found guilty of these charges. However, yesterday in the comments, somebody did, in the trailer review that I dropped for the final trailer, one of you did say, I'm not seeing X-Men Days of Future Past because Bryan Singer is a child molester. So just the very fact that this allegation has been made is a big problem for Bryan Singer and potentially for the X-Men franchise at Fox. And so I think that Fox and Singer should be taking this very seriously. Fox, because of what this could mean for them going forward, as we all know, Bryan Singer is deep in development for X-Men Apocalypse. So That might be derailed, and Fox could very well be looking at a case where they need to find a new helmer for their franchise, and they had just gotten Singer back, which was very important to them, and Singer was fully committed. And then as for Bryan Singer, he needs to be concerned not just because of the seriousness of these allegations, but because these are the second set of allegations to be made against him. You might recall that back in the day after Usual Suspects, he made a film called Apt Pupil with Brad Renfro and Ian McKellen, and he had a lawsuit put against the film. I don't know if Bryan Singer himself was personally named, but some underage extras said that he forced them to strip naked for a shower scene in a concentration camp. It's supposed to be a bunch of young boys in a shower. And that these underage extras, I believe the ages were like maybe 14, 17 and so they were told they were made to do something against their will, and that when they did strip, they felt that it was not strictly professional, and that there were lascivious aspects to it. And that case ended up not going anywhere. Investigators were called in. It ended up not going anywhere, but they did have to reshoot the scene with adult extras. So I think that it's unfortunate for Singer to now have 2 strikes against him. And as I think we know with Roman Polanski, as I brought up, Roman Polanski, of course, had a plea deal. He pled guilty, but then fled the country before he could be sentenced for having sex with an underage actress back, I believe, in the 1970s. And of course, he can no longer come back to the United States. Well, he certainly continues to work. These allegations, they plague him. He is a fugitive from justice, and his work is still, though, to some degree, I think, respected. Woody Allen is another case of someone, though, I think closer to Singer, if he's not charged here, that where the allegations were made, Woody Allen still continues to work, quite respected, just got, an achievement award from the Golden Globes last year, but these allegations just do not go away. They still haunt his career to this day. So this could be something that no matter what happens in the case, just always will shadow Bryan Singer going forward, which is, again, this is still developing, and so Fox is going to have to see what they're dealing with in a few weeks from now. So let's move on here. Also, the case, I want to make sure I get this right. This is, as I said, a very delicate discussion, extremely delicate. You're dealing with people's personal lives and their careers. Now, as for Hollywood itself, I said, there's a long history of abuse there. The casting couch is a very familiar term. And some people are saying, well, how could this have happened for so long? This happened at multiple parties, and who would let this happen to themselves? Perhaps this young man is as much of a victim as he's saying. I think that's a dangerous game to play. We'll see. The court of law will decide that. But I think that you have to remember that Hollywood, the prospect of being made into a movie star overnight is very powerful. And for some people, it is just too much to resist, or it's too persuasive to maybe give that up. And Hollywood has been using that carrot for years, and it's a problem, because I think Hollywood perpetrates this myth of an overnight success. All of a sudden, you show up in Hollywood's doorstep, someone takes a liking to you, and they just make you an overnight star, like they're your fairy godmother. And I think that, of course, that's a big problem. I think the best thing that new talent can do is educate themselves and discover that people are rarely overnight successes, that these promises are rarely followed through with, but it's still tragic to take advantage of people's hopes and dreams. And if even it just happens once or twice, someone's made an overnight success, as it has, it's enough to fuel a whole new round of potential abuse. So again, as I said, this is very serious. If this does go beyond Bryan Singer, it's very, very serious for Hollywood. I hope this lawyer is legitimate and he's not just looking to make a name for himself. But I think we have a pretty good legal system here, and hopefully they'll be able to sort everything out. But it's very serious indeed. And Fox, I'm sure, will be looking to wrap this up pretty quickly, so they can not have this be the major point of discussion when the film hits theaters for Memorial Day weekend. So that's what I think is going on here. That's the snapshot of the situation right now. I'm curious to how you guys feel. Would this at all potentially affect how you feel about X-Men: Days of Future Past? Are you still planning to go see the movie? How do you feel about Bryan Singer? Do you think that ABC and Fox were right to pull him from these events, the commercials for Black Box and WonderCon? And do you think that Bryan Singer can survive this, no matter if he's found guilty or not? And also Hollywood in general. and how it really does aid abuse, all kinds of abuse. And do you think anything can be done of it? So let's move on to the second story of the day. This also involves X-Men Days of Future Past and The Amazing Spider-Man 2. A very interesting situation, but I'm telling you it involves a spoiler for the end credit scene. I'm also telling you that this isn't really a spoiler, but if you're somebody who likes to be totally surprised, then you should skip to the third story. But if you're okay with just knowing something that's going to happen that has no effect on anything really, and beyond a business discussion, I think, I hope you'll stick around. So anyway, another thing that a lot of you asked me about is that The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is playing in a number of foreign countries right now. It opened very early, 2 weeks early, and as is becoming the case now, we here in America are experiencing what other countries have for so long. A lot of movies are getting spoiled for us to some degree. But this, as I said, isn't a huge spoiler. Basically, everybody loves after-credit sequences these days. Marvel has really pioneered them. They've made them very popular. People expect them. They play during or after the end credits. And sure enough, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 has an after-credit sequence. And someone was saying, at first I saw the murmurs, and people were like, oh, I wonder if she'll be a member of the Sinister Six. And I started to think, oh my goodness, is Gwen going to be made into Carnage like she is in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics? Is they going to somehow keep Emma Stone around? And I was trying to think how I felt about that, and so I thought, if that's it, I want to know. So I clicked and I found out, and that is not what it is. You probably would, see, trust me, you probably were thinking, oh, Grace, you said this wasn't an important spoiler, and that would have been huge. And maybe that's the direction they should have gone in, because the direction they went in is very odd. Some people are excited about it, and there are people like me who don't quite know what to make of it. Basically, what Amazing Spider-Man 2 has done is decided to show a clip from X-Men Days of Future Past, that scene where Mystique has an action sequence in that bunker with Havoc. And it's not something shot just for Amazing Spider-Man 2. It is actually literally a clip from X-Men Days of Future Past. So if you have to, it's been a long movie, you need to go head home, you have to go to the bathroom, you don't have to wait around for this after credit sequence because you're going to see it in just a few weeks. And that's my biggest problem with this, actually, that they would not shoot something unique and original for the film. Why stick around to just kind of see a snippet of something that you're going to see anyway? And I think that takes away from X-Men Days of Future Past. I think it's not a good idea to do it, and it might be, I don't know how many scenes Mystique has in this film. Are they giving away one of her big action sequences just for the sake of having an after-credit sequence? But people are very curious for what this means for Sony and Fox to be working together like this, to literally show a clip from another studio's movie in your movie. Sony, we would assume at the surface, gets no benefit from this. They didn't show a clip from one of their own films, upcoming films, that could have, I'm sure, tied in somehow, because how much does X-Men Days of Future Past tie in? But they instead decided to do a big favor for Fox that has this movie coming out. Now, of course, The Hollywood Reporter pointed out that Marc Webb, the director of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, has a good history with Fox. Fox actually let him out of a contract after 500 Days of Summer to do a film with them to go and make these Spider-Man movies. They're allowing him to continue to make them. So perhaps maybe this was a demand of the deal to let him stay with the Amazing Spider-Man franchise. Maybe this is just Marc Webb being nice to people he knows he's going to after he finishes with Spider-Man. That contract's still in play. Or maybe, as some people are saying, there will be a crossover eventually. While Marvel Studios isn't discussing crossovers with everyone, we just discussed crossovers the other day with Terrell Williams' question. Are Sony and Fox maybe mulling that over? I wonder how Disney feels about all this, because Disney's been on very good terms with Sony. So to see them kind of go over and help Fox, which has several properties that I'm sure Marvel would love to get back. I'm sure if I were Disney, I'd be like, what the hell, Sony and Arvid? I'm really kind of upset with you. Not cool. I'm going to not talk to you for a week. So I think that's a very interesting it's a very interesting situation, and we'll see what happens. I think it's really a non-event. As I said, I would have much preferred something that had to do with Spider-Man, or if it was X-Men that was shot just for this sequence. That's the whole fun of after-credit sequences. They're like Easter eggs, or they're special discoveries. There's something that only exists at this point in time, which is in the heady moments after you've seen what we all hope is a great film. And actually, the more I think about it, the more having I'm not sure. I like Gwen Stacy. I like, this is a spoiler. If you really hate spoilers, if you're not familiar with Spider-Man comics, now you switch to the third story. Gwen Stacy, as most people know, dies. And so I was trying to reconcile what is the best use of her character to show how a regular person was a victim of, a casualty of Spider-Man's crusade of his choices, or is it good to bring her in, keep her around, and keep Emma Stone, who's a very popular actress, or at least I'm not sure if she still is after taking on the Spider-Man role and having that take on most of her time, but she was very popular, and keeping her around. She has very good chemistry with Andrew Garfield, so would that be maybe a good idea? And as we've all said, the Sinister Six certainly need more female characters. Some people are joking maybe Mystique would be a member of the Sinister Six. Who knows what they have planned? They have been just talking about a Mystique film. But we'll see what happens. I think the biggest takeaway here is that Sony and Fox just still don't get it. They still don't get the point of the after credit sequence, and Marvel Studios, I'm sure, just has to be shaking their head as other people try to copy them to no avail. All right, so that's the second story of the day. The third story is something that really caught me by surprise. The Mrs. Doubtfire news actually broke the sequel. They're going to make a sequel to Mrs. Doubtfire. It actually broke a day ago. Not yesterday, but the day before. And I didn't cover it because I thought, who's going to be interested in a Mrs. Doubtfire sequel? Well, I am surprised. I am shocked at how many people are interested in a Mrs. Doubtfire sequel. This was the top story for most of the day yesterday on CNN, even this morning, Entertainment Weekly. It's trending on Twitter, Variety. Top story about this movie from back when Robin Williams was popular. That's how long ago this film was made. So they want to make a sequel. They've been trying to make a sequel since the first one came out. It's going to still star Robin Williams, and Chris Columbus would come back to direct. Remember, back then Chris Columbus was also a big name director until he kind of messed up the Harry Potter franchise and had to be taken off of it for not doing the greatest job starting it out. But we're talking about the guy who made Home Alone and Mrs. Doubtfire. He was quite a role for a while. So they also brought on the screenwriter from Elf to handle this sequel. And so everybody's very excited about this. And I though wonder where the sequel can go. Once his family knows obviously if you're not familiar with the film Mrs. Doubtfire, I guess you want to go rent it now. But Mrs. Doubtfire, Robin Williams was an out-of-work actor, a divorced dad, and he really wanted to get back and be with his kids. His wife was really keeping him at arm's bay, and he didn't have a job. He needed a job. So when he found out she was hiring a nanny, he went into costume, kind of like Dustin Hoffman and Tootsie. And it really, when you see films like this, when I was watching the trailer yesterday, because everyone was talking about it, it reminded me about Tyler Perry and Medea. So I thought, that was very interesting to see where that, comedian in drag as an elderly woman has gone. There's also Mrs. Brown's, I believe. Mrs. Brown is a character in the UK. I've been seeing a commercial for that, where a male comedian also dresses up as a grandma over there. He's getting, I think, his first film. So I think that's very interesting. To see someone else doing the same thing that Tyler Perry's doing. So I don't know why Tyler Perry gets so much heat for this, considering this is a Hollywood, vaudeville entertainment tradition. But anyway, and he's following in the footsteps of some wonderful actors, Milton Berle, Robin Williams, and then now, of course, his contemporary over in the UK. But anyway, he does a whole drag setup, and he plays this Irish grandmother named Mrs. Doubtfire, and he gets into his wife's, his ex-wife's life to be with his kids and help raise them, but also to try and take on Pierce Brosnan, who is the new suitor for his ex-wife. So very funny movie. I think one of the heydays of Hollywood film. When Hollywood was getting it right all the time. But I just don't know. Once his family knows that that's him in disguise, who else would he possibly need to trick? We'll see what happens. But I'm really surprised. If I were, I believe it's Fox 2000, the label that's developing this. If I were them, I'd be quite thrilled that so many people are so excited about this. I'd be like, wow, there's still heat for Mrs. Doubtfire. But who doesn't have a lot of heat? On a side note, they set the date for Magic Mike 2. Very little waves. I guess it wasn't enough news. People knew Magic Mike 2 was coming, but there was no other news except for the release date. So we'll see what happens with that as well. I think that's a sequel that people will anticipate. It'll be interesting to see if they can recapture the magic with that film as well. All right, so on to the viewer question. The viewer question comes from the Apple Cow Prodigy. It says, question, Dear Grace, I love the show and watch every day, either in the morning or when I come home from school. That's awesome, Dylan. He signed it, so I know who it is. So Dylan, that's so great. I know how important after-school programming is. You had a long day. You need to unwind. So the fact that this is your choice means a lot to me. So Dylan goes on and says, you're my favorite channel on YouTube. An embarrassment of compliments. Thank you, Dylan. And I've been watching your content for the last few years. Smiley face. Fantastic. Thank you, Dylan. And so now you have a great question. My question is about Frozen and the Blu-ray bonus features. I bought the Blu-ray because I love the movie. Although I see its shortcomings, I was disappointed with although I see its shortcomings. That's great, Dylan. You don't have to, if you do honestly see its shortcomings, I'm with you. But if you don't, there's no need to apologize ever for liking a film. This is all opinion-based. But Dylan says, I was disappointed because he watched the behind-the-scenes How We Made Frozen, and it was just a music video. It had nothing to do with the behind-the-scenes. I've seen clips of this, Dylan. I haven't actually seen this full bonus feature, but basically from what I have seen, it's more just like, kind of like Singing in the Rain, the We Make 'Em Laugh sequence. It's more like Jonathan Groff dancing around and, talking about how the movie was made, and maybe making it more of a comedy routine than an actual behind-the-scenes documentary like we so often enjoy on these Blu-rays. So Dylan says, do you think they did it to cover up that Elsa was supposed to be the villain, or help draw attention away from all the script rewrites? Thanks, and keep up the amazing content. Dylan, again, another smiley face. Well, as I've discussed many times here on the show, I do believe that Frozen went through not only major changes and rewrites, but towards the end, very close to the release date, which is why I personally feel it has a lot of shortcomings and plot holes, and just overall it seems very pieced together. Now, we do know that at some point Disney was hiding all these changes. For instance, they had a clip where Elsa was intentionally sending a snowstorm down at Anna and Kristoff, but that they had that clip pulled and they would not let anybody show it because they just wanted it not to be on people's radar. And that clip came out just maybe about 2 months before the movie's release. But I personally feel that considering how successful Frozen has become, they should own up to the changes that they made, because it worked. It was the right thing to do. And I think it would be very fascinating, and I think it would have a whole new wave of interest in Frozen, not only to discuss how they came up with such a phenomenon, but also I think people would be intrigued for what it could have been, the different possibilities that Disney was considering. Disney fans in particular, are always interested in these behind-the-scenes stories, and I think that Frozen Mania continues, and this would be a great way to keep it going with new what-ifs. Character designs, etc. Some of the artwork for Frozen that they were thinking of is quite beautiful. Now, to some degree, maybe Disney's worried that people will see what they had planned and go, well, maybe you should have gone with this. I know I've had that feeling a few times when seeing some of the, for instance, designs for inside Elsa's ice castle. Beautiful scenery and rooms that we never really got to explore. But then I think people would just definitely make a sequel and implement some of these ideas. But Disney, for some reason, is being very secretive about this. So I would be interested to know how you guys feel. Do you want to know the behind-the-scenes story? And knowing that this was a very last-minute fix, would that change your enjoyment all of the film? I'm just not quite sure what Disney is afraid of. And I think, if anything, it just makes it seem like they have something more to cover up that we don't know about. But movies always go through rewrites, and as I said, at the end of the day, they had such spectacular success. I believe it's up to number 8 or 7 of the most successful films of all time now. It passed Skyfall recently on the $1 Billion Club list. It's just an absolute phenomenon, and I think discussing that, because I think they could very easily go with the angle of this was new territory. We were breaking new ground. We were finding our way, and it was difficult to find our way. Yes, and yes, Jonathan Groff had to come in here and do his voiceover several times because we kept changing his character. Yes, because we knew that it wasn't right. And at Disney, we worked till the very last minute to make sure these films are as good as they can be. So I just feel that's the angle that I would go with. And then I would think you can get a second wind, a gust of Frozen wind behind this mania. But I'm just, as I said, I'm curious to what you guys think. I mean, I do believe this is the case, but do you think Disney's fears are misplaced or right on the money? So thank you for your question, Dylan. I hope you had a great day at school today. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. I hope you'll let me know what you'd like to see covered on Monday and any questions you might have. And you'll please comment on today's stories and today's viewer question. And I hope everyone will be very respectful to the delicate nature of the discussion about Bryan Singer. All right, thank you so much for watching. And you can check out some more episodes right now.